is Julia Hardaker, who is CEO of AMRRIC. And Julie's going to talk about developing a strategic plan because she has a background in organisational management, health and community development. And she's worked primarily in management in NGOs, not-for-profits, in Northern Territory, New South Wales, and in Afghanistan. She's a seriously interesting person, so if you can catch her for a chat, do. She provided support to programs in remote health clinics and developed training packages and assisted an organisation to centralise its programs and management in Kabul. Julie's been CEO of AMRRIC since 2007, and she remains positive and passionate about working with remote communities to improve the health and welfare of pets and their owners, building the capacity of governments to better work with Indigenous communities in animal management. And I know that all of that is really very on the money because Julia is seriously positive and motivated about what she does. So welcome, Julia.
That's your friend Beth doing a surgery. Thank you. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of this place, the Yugambeh people, both past, present and future. And I'd also like to thank the organisers, particularly Nell, for the invitation, and I use that word loosely, coercion, forcing, conning. There's lots of words to describe Nell's style. But thanks anyway for having me here. It's a pretty boring subject, but God, it's an important one. I thought the first question I'd ask is, who has a strategic plan with their organisation? And that's what I thought you'd do. And so that's why I'm wondering why you're all here. It's like, if you have one, what are you doing here? But anyway, so maybe you're here for a variety of reasons, and it's not my favourite topic that I was asked to speak on, but as I said, it's been really necessary for us to have a strategic plan, and hopefully by the end of this talk, I'll be able to convey the reasons for that. So who's AMRRIC? Fortunately, through three of the speakers yesterday afternoon, you could get to actually see a bit of what AMRRIC's doing, so I don't need to go on too much, but we're a not-for-profit group based up in Darwin, and we work nationally. We work with local Aboriginal people to deal with the complexity of dog management in remote communities, and we encourage communities to engage in culturally appropriate, sustainable animal management programs. And the word sustainable means that what we're really interested in is not white fellas doing it, we're interested in building the capacity of Indigenous people so they do it. So let's move straight on to the topic. Why do we need a strategic plan? We need one for three good reasons. Both yourself and your external stakeholders need to know why the organisation exists. That is, what's its vision and its purpose. You need to know where you want to be in 3 or 5 years. Some people, I think Lisa was telling me yesterday, their organisation in the States do it every year. And I thought, oh, that's way too much for me. It's enough just to get my head around what I've got to do in the first year, let alone have one change every year. So we look at 3 to 5 years, and that plan is in line with our purpose, and it looks at how far along the road to achieving the vision we really want to be. In other words, what our objectives are. It's also important that the stakeholders know how you're going to get there and what you need to do to achieve what you want to achieve, and that is what strategies you want to use to be able to get to where you want to go. This is hard to press. Really important to know if you're all singing the same song. Are you all on the same page? Some of you may say, but I know what we're doing and what we want to achieve. But sit down and ask everyone in the organisation. See if they all come up with the same answer. Because without an articulated vision and purpose, it's highly likely they'll all have a different answer, and the orchestra's not going to sound too good. It's going to be dysfunctional, imploding, or you're going to be chasing your own tail if you're not singing the same song. It doesn't matter how big your organisation is. In fact, 6 years ago, I acquired the reins of AMRRIC, and it was handed to me in a box full of papers, and there was a mobile phone and a laptop. That was it. No staff, no money, nothing. but we still needed a strategic plan. And it needs to be collaboratively developed and very clearly articulated so that everyone can see it and own it and be part of it and know what they're doing. And it needs to be clear so that you can keep coming back to it to see whether or not you're on track. And it's even more urgent if there's only one or two people in your organisation, because otherwise, you know, if you don't have a profile and you don't know where you're going, then what the heck are you going to be doing? Sorry. So again, those three key elements that I just mentioned: why do we exist, where do we want to be, and how can this objective be met? AMRRIC's vision is Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities that are healthy and safe for people and their animals. So if you can answer that question about why do we exist, you're a bit on the way to having that vision and purpose. And you need helicopter vision, really. You need to be able to get right up there and to see the bigger picture. And that picture will become your vision and your purpose. And without it, you'll just never reach a full potential. And it's really easy, I know for me, to get just caught up in those day-to-day demands and operations and get sort of slightly off track. And it's really important to be able to come back and look at it and get refocused, and also to be able to go, wow, we've done that, or God, I forgot all about that bit in here, I better pay it some attention, which is often what the case is for me. So we need that vision, and it's a reference point. And that reference point from which to assess whether what we're doing, what that task at hand is actually relevant. The link between human health and animal health is very, very important to AMRRIC. In fact, we see it as our specific and unique contribution to make along the trajectory to achieving that goal, and it's captured in that purpose and vision that we said, which is to work with communities to improve the health and welfare of companion animals, and subsequently the whole community. So, okay, so we've narrowed it down to a vision and a purpose. It's still pretty ambitious and visionary, but not impossible. Our core business is to work and impact positively. So how do we do that? Sorry, went one too far there. In fact, too far. Having that point of reference helps me stay on track, because it's really, really easy to get sidetracked. I don't know about you, but getting funding and resources is a really big issue for us, and it has been. It's been an ongoing quest, and in fact, many of the time we've survived just year by year by year. And it's easy to get distracted, because every now and then someone might just come along and say, wow, we reckon it'd be good if we got your AMWs while they're doing their animal management work to get involved in maybe doing a traditional fire program. And sooner or later, you know, the attractive little feed of funds that was there to do the fire program will mean that we're going to be applying to the Federal Department of Flamethrowing and Jumping Through Hoops and High-Flying Bureaucrats Department, and ending up with a miserly amount of money for which we have to report in triplicate, triennially, to trillions in the high-flying bureaucrats unit within that department. And so, you know, it's really important to stay on task and not get too sidetracked. And it's okay, you know, not everybody can do helicopter vision and see big picture stuff. I'm a visionary person, but I'm not good at articulating it, but I'm damn good at doing it. So that's not my gift to articulate it particularly. So, you know, if it's good to recognise what your talents are and what they aren't, and if you need help, get someone in to help you do that. And we couldn't afford that, so we actually found someone pro bono, and that person came on track with us 7 years ago and has stayed committed to us for that entire time, and does all our strategic planning reviews twice a year with our board, pro bono. So let's look at the second ingredient. Where do we want to be in, say, 3 years' time in line with our purpose? In other words, what are our objectives? There's no point of having a whole lot of objectives that are possible to achieve in the time frame. Those objectives have to be SMART: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant and time-bound. And included here are AMRRIC's 6 key objectives. We see these as specific, that is, they're directly in line with our purpose, so they're relevant, and they're achievable or attainable, and they're achievable and attainable within the 3 years of the plan. In other words, they're time-bound. After learning from all the successes and failures of our past and building on those achievements, we think that these 6 objectives will be the most effective objectives that we can have in moving towards those communities that are healthy and safe for people and their animals. If we look at the first objective, for example, it's clear that animal management education and desexing programs are needed in communities. That's a no-brainer. But these are needed in every single community, and sustainability won't be possible if we are the key provider and we work in isolation. So capacity building within each community and every level of government and engaging with communities needs to occur before it's effective and sustainable. So as I said, all of our objectives are specific, relevant and attainable. So how can these objectives be met? That one I was just mentioning. And how we'll get there is what's important. Sorry, I'm going a bit too fast here. So that brings us to the how part, as I said. And strategies have their origins in the military. And the father of Western modern strategic study, Karl von Clausewitz, not that I knew him, defined military strategy as the employment of battles to win the end of the war. This is distinct from tactics. And according to him, tactics is the art of using troops in battle, and strategy is the art of using the battles to win the war, as I said. So in the context of our own organisations, this is an important distinction. Strategies are a much higher order. So I take just a strategy here from Objective 3 in ours, and we look at it and we go, wow, how are we going to do this? How are we going to advocate and partner with other organisations? So we could say things like, well, the CEO and the program managers are going to set up meetings with other organisations to discuss how we're going to do it, but they're higher order than that. We see, you know, that we want to be pivotal here in how things are really going to change. So we want to develop national animal welfare strategy, and we actually want to change that legislation. We want to make changes to the law of the land concerning animal welfare. So there's a lot of activities that are needed to implement the strategies, and we need to think about the key ones and list them next to each one. So clear thinking and logic, and a bit of time to think about it. And for those of us that are super busy, it's really hard to find time to think. So that's why we need it articulated, is very crucial. So considering how we're going to measure our objectives, I haven't mentioned that before. So stick with the SMART, specific, attainable, relevant and time-bound. And now we'll talk about measurable. A key measure of success listed in our Objective 3 is AMRRIC's best practice guidelines reflected in legislation. So we know we've been able to change legislation when the legislation is clearly aligned with our best practice guidelines for animal management and welfare. That's how we'll measure it. And that way, you know, we can constantly gauge how close to achieving our objectives we really are. So again, in summary, we have the 3 most important elements of a strategic plan. Knowing what your vision and purpose is, developing the SMART objectives to get closer to making your vision a reality, and then developing the strategies to meet each objective. There's a lot of other things that you can add into a strategic plan, and it's really important here to consider what do you want to use it for. And the strategic plan that we've got on our website, we decided to keep that a pretty simple document, and basically it just lists all our strategies and our objectives and has a little bit of organisational content in there. But our business plan has a lot more information in it, but you may choose to put more information in your strategic plan. For example, your organisational values, your operating principles, that is how we go about doing our business and what guides our approach to stakeholders and partners, and I've just given one there as an example. And it says we always take a consultative and respectful approach when engaging with communities to make culturally appropriate, mutually agreed decisions regarding the delivery of programs. Do you like Tony holding the safe sex poster from Iowa? He loves that poster. So that embodies and reinforces our most important values. Being able to listen, having mutual respect, being culturally aware, making decisions collaboratively. They are the cornerstones of our working relationships with remote communities. And without them, we can't operate, and nor would we want to. Those principles are also reflected in other documents. So we've got them in our strategic plan, but we've also carried them over into other key documents. For instance, AMRRIC has a reconciliation action plan, our business plan, and other key documents. Again, more information that you may be able to add into that strategic plan is the context in which your organisation works and which strategies are therefore most likely to succeed. As I said, some of the information that we've included in our business plan is really handy if we're going for funding, say from a philanthropic group. Somebody might be parked in Melbourne and they've got no idea of the context in which we are working at in remote communities. So we've got information in there about, that can tell a whole story about the environment, about, the wet season, how the roads are all wet for, many, many months, and communities are completely isolated and it's stinking hot and everybody's stuck in the community for months on end and it's difficult for us to access that community. Or maybe there's information, and something else that comes to mind is we've got information in there about the impact of the Northern Territory intervention on remote communities. What has that meant? And a variety of other information. Now, to our government funders, it's probably not a good idea that we include that information in our strategic plan, because we don't want them reading what we think about the government, which is not a very high opinion most of the time. So, but for a philanthropic group, that information may be really relevant. So, we use that information carefully, and it's not in our strategic plan, but you may choose to add some of that information in. So painting that very vivid picture so that they understand that context and they're more likely to invest in you. It's better to probably keep your strategic plan fairly short rather than long if it's going up, and the other alternative is to keep some of that information as an appendix to your strategic plan. If you don't have one and you're looking to get one done, it can seem pretty overwhelming when you first do a strategic plan. And it's really important that you make time to have a look at the organisation and its operating context. And, a person who has the courage to do self-inventory, to look at how you behave, how you respond, what your strengths and weaknesses are, a person who can honestly do that is much more likely to succeed and live effectively in their lives. And they'll most likely have emotional intelligence and empathy and compassion. They know their limitations, they know what they're good at, they know what they're not good at, and they can acknowledge those gifts and attributes or shortcomings, for instance mine on articulating. So somebody who can do that is pretty well equipped to meet the challenges of life. And with strategic planning, there's really no difference between a human or an organisation. So it's really important as part of that planning that we go, well, heck, we're not very good at doing that particular thing, but we know someone who is, and then trying to get that skill brought into our organisation. There are tried and tested tools which can help you do that navel gazing or self-inventory taking, and probably nearly every one of you in this room has used that most well-known tool of a SWOT, where we get to look at the internal environment, what those strengths and weaknesses are, and then having a look at the opportunities and threats that it may be presenting to your organisation, and looking for ways in which you can deal with those challenges. once you've got a good grip on those SWOT findings, you get a bit of a feel for where you want to go, what resources you're going to need and how long it's going to take to get there. And then you're in a much better position to develop smart objectives because you really know the context in which you're operating to achieve them. Not a simple or easy process. It takes quality time, courage and honesty to reflect on your weaknesses and the challenges that you're facing. And I know one of my defects of character is that often I think I can take on a whole lot more than I actually can. And then I'll get all enthusiastic and go, yeah, we can do that, we can do that, we can do that. And then finding yourself sitting there with your mouth hanging open and you're about to have a serious professional burnout and you've gone, shit, what do we do? So, you know, it's really good if you've got somebody on your team who's a little bit sort of dampened down and a little bit sort of negative and reserved with those other people who've got all that sort of energy so that you strike that safe balance somewhere but also build in a little risk and encouragement to push you on. Very often we keep coming up against brick walls and one of them that I can think of is a political factor that really threatens AMRRIC's progress in our strategic plan and that is in, and I thank Emma for mentioning it yesterday, in the Northern Territory we are 40 years behind all the other states, there is no doubt about that, and we have a Department of Health up there who does not acknowledge the links between human health and dog health, like duh. Every other state, every other place in the world does, but in the Northern Territory there are some political reasons for that. And it's been a problem that we've had to deal with throughout our whole existence. So this is where a strategic plan really comes in because we have to look at those political brick walls and go, right, how are we going to get around that? And one of the ways in which we're doing that is we've got some scientists and researchers doing some desktop literature reviews for us, continuing to have it as a focus at our conference, staying in touch with researchers, supporting research, so that we can eventually build a body of evidence to take to those wonderfully gifted Northern Territory politicians and say, this is irrefutable evidence and what are we going to do about that? And they seem to need a lot of evidence to be convinced. So that's why it's important that we have built into our strategies things like in our quality education strategy that AMRRIC substantially progresses research in animal health and welfare and the impacts of dog health on human health in Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities. And how are we going to do that? What is the strategy needed to be employed? We will build relations with academic institutions to support fields of study and research and partner with universities to establish research centres or research projects. So by identifying those forces at work in the external environment, in this case predominantly political environment, we can then see best how we can work towards overcoming them. But as we know, things are constantly changing. And how do we keep up with the rate of change and the forever shifting sands? How can we implement a plan in such an environment? And this brings us to a final point about strategic planning. Because we don't want that document, although it is a very pretty, shiny document. That's why I'm here today, because Nell spotted it on our website and said, you've got to come and talk about that. So it is a glossy document, but we don't want it collecting dust on the shelf. It needs to be a living, breathing document, not set in concrete. And strategic plans, as we all know, require constant revisiting to see where we're up to. How many targets have we met? Is it even working? And as I said earlier, to take a moment to stop and celebrate, wow, we've done that, you know, and that's a really important thing to do with your team and your board. It becomes a valuable tool for navigating through turbulent times as well as inspiring us when the ocean is becalmed and the monotony of everyday operations and the relentless challenges are facing us. And I tell you what, if you work in the Northern Territory, you'll know that what I've just said is true. We don't work in an easy environment. You know, we need lots of time to pat each other on the back and to debrief with each other and to support each other to meet those challenges. So that's why it's important to come back to that plan every now and then so that you know whether you're on track or not. You need your boards to be right behind you. Not only its creation, but its implementation, and also to be flexible enough sometimes to listen back from those people on the ground, you know, your CEOs, your team members, your toilet cleaners, whoever it is that can come back and feed back to the board and say, well, actually, we really don't think that bit works and this is the reason why. A good plan will always include a means by which the plan itself is monitored and evaluated, and we've got that built into our governance policies and procedures, that's something that we do, and we actually do it twice a year. And with a national board, that's not always logistically easy to get our board all together and to do that, but that's what we aim to do. So, all the very best with your strategic planning. And you may have entirely different experiences and feedback, and you may be able to look at what I've hopefully, or what I've just shared with you, and hopefully you may have some better ideas. And my email address is on our website. You're welcome to send your ideas. And yeah, we really hope that you know, you'll go on to fulfil your vision. And I can assure you that the ecstasy of that will far outweigh the, at times, agony of developing a strategic plan. And that winking doggy agrees. So if you want to know more, there's lots of things you can do to be in touch with us at AMRRIC. And a little quick plug, see, she hasn't put the zero sign at me just yet. We have our conference next month up in Alice Springs. And yeah, if you're really interested in what we're doing, there's a fabulous lineup there. And go to our website and have a look. So thank you very much.